Hey guys, this is Goku, and on this channel we talk about poker and ideas that can improve your life. So if you're interested in that, please go ahead and click the subscribe button because I'll be honored to have you here. In this video, we're going to talk about bet sizing, so how much to bet, when to bet, and why bet at all. So let's get right into it. Before we get into the specifics of bet sizing, I'd like to tell you about betting in general. In Hold'em, every time you bet, you have to have a reason for it, a very specific one. You could be betting for value because you think you have a better hand than your opponent and you want to get as many of his chips as possible. Or you could be betting to force your opponent off his hand because you think you have a weaker hand and you think his hand is weak enough that your bet can force him to fold it. Also, every time you bet, you gain an important piece of information that allows you to narrow down the range of hands your opponent could have in that spot. So let's talk about the preflop bet sizing. In cash games, your standard opening should be 3 big blinds plus 1 big blind for every limper in the pot. A limper is someone who just calls the big blind. If someone has already raised and you want to re-raise or 3-bet, your standard 3-bet should be about 3 times his raise. In tournaments, it's a little different because you want to preserve chips. So while your standard opening might still be 3 big blinds at the beginning of the tournament, you should gradually make it smaller as the tournament goes on. You will often see players in the late phase of the tournament opening from anywhere from 2 big blinds to 2.5 big blind, and that's what you should do too. Because 2.2 big blind raise will achieve almost the same results as a 3 big blind raise, and you are risking less with the smaller opening. It's the same with 3-bets. In a tournament, a standard 3-bet could be about 2.5 times the raise. So how do you size your bets after the flop? Well, you have to look at the pot and see how big it is, and then bet between 50 and 100% of the size of the pot. If you're only just starting out playing poker, I'd recommend using just 2 standard bet sizings. The first one should be about 50% of the pot, and the second one about 70% of the pot. Every time you want to bet, you should use either of these. When you get more practice, you will definitely experiment with having different sizings for different situations. You always want to bet just as little as you think is enough to make your opponent fold, or just as much as you think he will call. Also, you need to be consistent with your sizing. You should always bet the same way whether you're betting for value or bluffing, so that you are hard to read for your opponents. Okay, great, let's sum up what you've learned. You know that before the flop, your standard raise should be around 3 big blinds plus 1 big blind for every limper. Your standard re-raise, a 3-bet, should be around 3 times the raise. You know that after the flop, you should count the size of the pot and bet the percentage of it. You will develop your own bet sizings with practice, but for starters, to make things easy, I recommend having just 2 sizings, 50 and 70% of the pot. You know that in tournaments you should size your bets smaller, as your goal is to risk as little chips as possible. You know that every time you bet you have to have a reason for it, and it can be either value betting or bluffing. Lastly, you know that you should be consistent with your betting and always use the same sizing for specific ranges of hands in specific spots. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and post them below and I'll be sure to answer them as best as I can. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to watch more videos like this in the future. This video is part of a complete poker course dedicated to beginner and casual players that teaches the fundamentals, the most basic principles and strategies of No Limit Texas Hold'em. If you want to become a winning poker player, check it out at Udemy and Skillshare. The links are in the description of this video.